You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Good morning, everyone. From Is There Sleep in Pete's Eyes? Why does Doug look so incredibly vibrant and healthy at 6 a.m. West Coast time? Edition of Global Trade This Week. I'm Pete Mento, and with me, as usual, not as always, but as usual, is my co-host, Mr. Doug Draper. Dougie, we're both in California.
Yep, I love it. You know, it's we're both in California. It is 6:16 a.m. and you're in a Residence Inn, and I'm actually in the office because when we ran this show a couple times from my hotel room, the internet just isn't powerful enough. So I come in, and there's a Starbucks around the corner that opens up at 5 a.m. Right, so I got my Starbucks right here. And I walk in there, guns a-blazing. What's up? What's going on? How you doing? First order of the day, yada, yada, yada. And these people behind the Starbucks look like zombies. And I'm like, have a great day, you know, blah, blah. And they just looked at me like I was either a moron or a figment of their imagination or whatever. I came in there, energy was flowing, and I left, and then they look like zombies.
They probably think you're on meth, Doug, frankly. These guys you're like running around like high-fiving everybody, you know? It's like a high school basketball coach just like firing up the team. Yeah. I love it, Doug.
I got there about 5 minutes early and they weren't open yet. So here's this car, and it was three women. So here's this car with headlights on just idling outside of their store. And I was like, they probably think
they're robbed. Yeah. So, now here's what you have to do to complete the cycle. You got to go back around like 11 because they're probably still going to be on their shift, and be just as fired up, like it's halftime. What's going on? Like go in there like Hulk Hogan at the RNC and like tear off your shirt, you know, get everybody all jacked and pumped for the second half of their day.
Yeah, for sure. But come in with this same cup and just have coffee dripping down it, like it's all stained and everything. Like I just been drinking nonstop.
Yeah, Doug, I'm telling you, if you want to mess with the Starbucks crew, and you're there all the time, right?
I'm in one full week a month. Yeah, but I hit the same Starbucks and all that kind of stuff. You know, creature habit.
It would become almost like an SNL skit by the time I was done with that. Yeah. Well, anyway, we want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank our good friends at Cap Logistics for providing our platform. And with that, Doug, what is topic number one for this show?
All right. Topic number one, it popped up on my feed end of last week, and it's about the Tehuantepec. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Tewanta. Tehuantepec. The Isthmus Corridor has been completed down in Mexico, Tehuantepec, and it is alive and kicking. And I did some more research on this, Pete. I had heard about it, and I said, okay, that's kind of cool. And I'm doing some more investigation. It's a north-south corridor that connects, the Pacific Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico, and it's designed to carry people and freight, and it opened up end of June, right? So the first movement, I think it was June 30th or July 1st, something like that. And it transported like 13,000 tons of white corn from the port of Salina Cruz up to Veracruz. Here's the thing I want to get into, right, is that it took 3 trips, 45 bulk grain hoppers, and it did not move a boat. Didn't move a vessel, it moved the product on a train, which is fine. The isthmus itself, I think, is like 100 and some odd miles, 330 kilometers. And they're pitching it as an option, an alternative to the Panama Canal. So there's the pitch is Panama Canal, second option. I get that, right? Because of the craziness that we've been talking about the Panama Canal and the delays and the drought. And that is Mother Nature, and who knows if that's going to come around again. Things have calmed down at the Panama Canal, but Mother Nature controls if it turns into a chaos again. So I get that. The other interesting thing, Pete, is it's owned by the government, and they wanted it to not be privately controlled, which I can understand that as well. But here's the biggest thing is that you're not moving a vessel, you're moving individual containers, and you have to have another vessel on the other side, right? So Panama Canal is, let's take the whole vessel and just move it and keep it on its journey. This is unloading containers, taking it to a rail yard, moving it, 100 plus miles, reloading it. There's got to be a vessel on the other side. So it conceptually sounds good. I think there will be a niche or a niche, if you will, that will come. Maybe it's going to be grain and bulk commodities. But the concept of consumer goods or boxes moving through the system to be offloaded, move that shorter distance, and reloaded on another vessel. That's a lot of extra cabbage to be putting at the movement of that transport. So I don't know the practicality of it. Sounds kind of cool. Kudos to the Mexican government to at least come up with some options. I think there will find a niche, but as far as a huge impact and really replacing or becoming a full-on subsidy for the Panama Canal, I just don't see it happen. Have you heard about this? Do you have any take on it?
Hadn't heard a word about it until you sent it as a topic, and I looked into it. I was trying to figure out how much it cost. I didn't come across an article. Did you come across?
Yeah, it's about. They said 2.5 to 5 billion. I don't know. It's it's not fully developed out. They're saying it'll be 100% operational another handful of years, but it's in the billions. But it's not astronomical.
Yeah, look at us. It's in the billions, but come on, money's in the ashtray of my Jeep, right? So, the first thing that hit me to this was it's a great indication. It's a really cool example of how Mexico is working hard to modernize, I suppose, and create more opportunities to become that leading trading nation. So that's nice to see. But then, as far as a land bridge kind of concept, bringing stuff over there, moving it, this is a volume business, right? Transportation is, the more you have, the lower your costs are going to be. There's a reason why we have these Supermax ships and all the rest of it. I harken back to my academy days when Captain Stinky Weeks, Captain Weeks, we called him Stinky because he smoked a pipe. Captain Weeks just said over and over again, a ship only makes money when it's fallen down, when it's full of cargo, down to its safe loading marks. You have to move a lot to make a lot of money in this particular environment. And I don't know that railhead, from what I saw of it, it's got to be able to push enough volume to make sense that way. I also don't know what the next steps of their rail integration is going to look like and the increase to their overall infrastructure on rail. You hope that this is the first step in many. We've been whining, you and I, on this show for years now about American rail infrastructure and how we're big fans of rail, and we'd like to see more opportunities for people to push more through it. So, at least let's give them a pat on the back for getting that worked on. But I don't think you'll ever move enough cargo of that type in order to make this really pay it back.
Yeah. The other thing I read, Pete, on my last comment on this one is that when it's fully operational, it's going to move 1.8 million TEUs a year, and the Panama Canal is at like 9.
Yeah.
Right. So even at its peak, it's not quite at that level. But I agree with you. Kudos for trying something. The infrastructure provides economic value to that region of Mexico. So anyway, it's interesting. I'm not sure it's going to be as impactful as maybe they're hyping it, but anyway, good feedback.
Yeah. Well, all right, man. So my first topic this week, because we can't talk enough about EVs and tariffs, the European Union has voted, and apparently they're going to put in place a 37.6% tariff on electric vehicles coming into the European Union. And that is significantly lower than what we've done in the US at 100%. So that was a little shocking to me that it was as low as it was. The other thing that it brought to mind was talk about a country who's they're pretty comfortable. The European Union is not a country, a region. They're pretty comfortable with putting in non-tariff barriers to entry and tariff barriers to entry. Seems low. Could have been much higher. And you've got so many car companies in Europe that are working so hard to get a foothold in the world on their EVs. This is a show of force that I think the world is genuinely scared of a Chinese EV manufacturing takedown of the rest of what would be more traditional car companies. The Fords of the world, BMWs, Volkswagen, Peugeot. The list goes on and on, right now, right? So we have an indication here that the world is afraid of China. Will a 37.6% will be high enough? Yeah. Not, I don't believe it will be. And then the other half of this is, I think we've probably done too little, too late. The Chinese are ready to flood global markets with inexpensive, reliable, believe it or not, reliable cars that, yes, they have a lower range of how many miles they can do in a day. Typical consumer isn't going to be so worried about that. I don't think. I don't think that people are, in the next couple of years, are going to realize I only need a couple hundred miles a day. That's it. And if I can get a couple hundred miles a day for a car that costs me 10 grand, I mean, that's a game changer. So I think it's too little, too late. And I'm saying it now. In July 23rd, 2024, I think the automotive industry, the future of it belongs to the Chinese.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the topics we had, I don't remember, a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two ago, it seems like China's EV, semiconductors, and battery storage and solar kind of seems to be their new mantra. But the car thing's interesting, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, right? It was so the vote for European Union, non-binding, right? It was just kind of a show, and everybody that voted was anonymous, right?
That's right.
You couldn't tell what countries. I mean, it'll get out, right, at some point, but it was just, it's almost like they're putting the toe in the water to say, hey, is this going to work? 37.6. But I think, so that was interesting to me. The second piece, you said there's a lot of car manufacturers in Europe that are aggressively trying to tap into this market. But you're exactly right. From a consumer perspective in the United States, there's going to be two cars. Most families have two cars. One is the commuter car, which you just said, 10 grand to get electric, and I'm doing my part, and I zip around town, and I use a couple hundred miles a week. And then you got the road trip car, the one you take up on your trip, going to the lake, going to the beach, going to the mountains. That one has nothing to do with electric. That's gas all the way, and it's going to have safe and security and no distance anxiety or power anxiety, whatever that term is. So you're right. It'll be interesting to see, and I think even tariffs are I don't know. It's interesting, but you're gosh darn right. China's turning the gas down or cranking up the juice, if you will, to become world dominant in that topic.
I was thinking about when I took the train every day, and I drove my car the 10 miles to the train station and I just left it there. Imagine if I could have plugged it in, right? Got back in, it was charged as soon as I came back and brought it back. I didn't have a bus I could take to the train. I didn't have any other type of, or I would have done that too. But the amount of money I could have saved with a car that inexpensive for as little as I drove, it would have been an absolute winner. But I think that the U.S. companies are going to have to make an inexpensive model, and I mean inexpensive, in order to be able to compete here. And I think China's put themselves in a position where it's an arms race, and they hold a lot of the cards. The high-end EV market, I think that's different. I think it's going to be different for a long time. Ever been in a Rivian? They're positively gorgeous. The newer higher end Teslas that are out there, they're incredible as well. So a lot's left to be done here. And there isn't a dominant brand in that way for the low end cars. So I can't wait to watch and see what happens, Doug.
Yeah, interesting topic and evolution for sure. All right, well, that brings us to halftime. As we mentioned before, brought to us by Cap Logistics, the ones that make all this happen every week, and we can't thank them enough. So visit caplogistics.com. All right, so halftime, this is where we talk about whatever we want to talk about. Yours is very interesting, Pete, so I'm going to go first. I saw yours, and I'm like, that's a 5 a.m. kind of like, what am I going to talk about at halftime? So mine is a question to you, Pete. So I saw the other day that there was a beluga whale, or two of them, that were transported from the Ukraine to Spain. They're getting the belugas out of the war zone, and they were flown. They were put on a plane, and they were flown. Beluga whales. Pete, by the way, beluga whales need to stay in water in order to live, right? So you got to think that there was a gigantic pool in an airplane driving these animals from two different countries. So that was like, that's cool. So I started Googling, like, who the hell did this? There are companies out there that specialize in the movement of animals and all kinds of crazy commodities and things of that nature. So kudos to getting the two beluga whales from the Ukraine to Spain. It was amazing. It caught my attention. I'm like, that's cool. So my question to you, Peter, is what's the craziest commodity or scenario that you've seen in your career as far as a moving cargo from one part of the world to another?
So first of all, we've done that. We've moved marine mammals at DSV. I have no idea how they did it. I should probably ask somebody.
Yeah.
But the craziest thing that I've ever had to move was racehorses. Yeah, live racehorses. That I was involved in some of those, going from mostly the U.S. like Kentucky and Virginia and Tennessee to the Middle East. So they moved those air freight. It's pretty crazy. But when I was on a ship once, we had all kinds of animals on it. And I have a story about one of my professors from the academy, Captain Brown, telling us about moving circus animals, and the monkeys got out of their cages and were just wreaking havoc for like a month as they crossed the Atlantic. And I always thought that would be hysterical. Like you're trying to get to your watch, and some monkey walks into the control room, and they're just jumping up and down on stuff. I can't even imagine having to live with that. What's your wildest, Doug?
There's two of them, but I'll keep it super, super short. This was when here in Denver, we were part of the packaging side of it at my old company, but we moved sand from a specific quarry. If you do sand in a quarry, but it was in southern Colorado. We brought it up, and they were shipping sand to Afghanistan, and it was being able to ship bunkers. Like, oh my gosh. I was like, is this a joke? Right. So
were they using it for fracking? What were they using it for? Do you know?
No, they were using it for building part of, I don't know if it was bunkers or whatever, but it was for building. And it was almost like a part A and a part B, because we had to label everything, either a red tag and a blue tag. But it was, part of the rules and regulations of the government. If you can source it domestically, that's priority one. And so, yeah, we didn't take sand and dump it, but it came in buckets, and we had to pack it up and make it secure. And I'm not talking like a couple. We probably did 25 truckloads of sand that was then flown to Afghanistan. So
I want to meet the salesperson, Doug, that sold sand in a desert.
Well, exactly. That guy or gal needs, a commission check for sure. But there was so many people. I can't remember the details, but the government contracted with Halliburton, and Halliburton contracted with these guys and those guys. We were like number 7 on service providers that were touching the sand to get it over to Afghanistan. It was nuts. And the second one, Pete, is that being University of Colorado is a big research institution, and we had to load up an 2 ocean containers full of like hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment and send it down to Central America somewhere. And it was all to test in a clip, or not test, to video.
Observe, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. Observe. Something happening astronomically for literally 2.5 seconds. So they sent all this stuff down there. They were going to set it up. They spent just an insane amount of money, and they had to get it there at a certain time. I mean, talk about pressure to get there with delays. Literally move it to another country, hundreds of thousands of dollars of material for a 2.5 second observation. So those are my 2 crazy ones.
Did it make it in time, Doug?
I don't know that, because we were just involved with the loading piece of it. I would assume it did, right? But I don't know. Trust me, it was shipping well in advance. I think it was 2 months before the actual event took place. But crazy. I like horses. That's a little simpler to. Well, let me rephrase that. That process is not simple, but those are good stories for sure.
Yeah, dude. I'm sure if I sat here and racked my brain, I could think of some other crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Sand to a desert, that's pretty awesome.
I don't even know. But the crazy thing, Pete, is that literally, I remember counting, I can't remember all the contractors, but we were like number 7 in service providers. And, we're like, who's paying for this? The government? Okay, let's make sure we make some money on this thing, because obviously they need to get sand to Afghanistan. So just the amount of money involved to export that and fly sand over to Afghanistan. Crazy.
There's a reason why the government contracting division of most businesses is one of the most profitable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, man, my topic is a weird one, Doug. So if you've been listening to podcasts and interviews of Elon Musk for years now, you know that there is a popular theory that we are living in a simulation, Doug, that this is some kind of computer simulation that has been going on, that we're part of it, and it's not real, that this is just us living through simulation. Not only is that a theory, Elon Musk believes it. He believes it. He says it's more likely than not that we are in a simulation. And think about how wild this is. So there are people who say today's simulation is really nothing like yesterday's, that you wake up with implanted memories of what happened the day before, and it's part of a very large computer model that we're all taking part in, and that there's billions of them happening at once, which explains the multiverse. And this just happens to be the one you're experiencing right now. And it's messed with my head, Doug, that I've been thinking about this for like a year and a half. Am I living in a simulation? And then I look at the world around me. Doesn't seem so unlikely anymore with the way things are happening and how completely just off kilter and weird things have gotten. And then the backup for this is when you look at the science of virtual reality and our computing abilities, it's not that crazy to think that we would have simulations in the very near future that appear to be almost exactly lifelike. So, Doug, are we living in a simulation?
Wow, this is heavy, man. So, isn't life in general just a simulation? But the answer to that is no. And I'd like you to, one of the shows coming up, I want you to describe what's in your bug out bag before the the world freaks out and you're running to your bunker, right? So I don't. This is insane to me. I don't understand. No.
Doug, what's going to happen after the show is that Keenan and I are going to send you so many videos, because I'm quite sure he's been looking at this stuff too, and you are going to be inundated with "you live in a simulation" videos. It's not going to be like Alex Jones, like everybody. The problem here is that we live in a simulation. It's not going to be quite that bad, but we'll get you some learned ones that will make you think. It's not going to be so easy to have a doubt about this. You're going to have a doubt. You're going to have a doubt.
Well, if we're in a simulation, when you turn off the simulation, right, there has to be a reality behind it. So the question is, what's the reality if the simulation stops, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, buddy. I think I'm beginning to believe it, though.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah.
Well, that's a hell of a topic to end with on halftime. Again, brought to us by Cap Logistics. Put that one in your pipe, Keenan, and see how
Smoke
you can smoke it. That's wow. Okay, I'll blame that partially on the 6 a.m. Kickoff here. So anyway, thanks to Cap. Appreciate their involvement. CapLogistics.com. Check them out. Pete,
you're up next topic. Yeah, you're up next, buddy.
All right. See, we can blame all of these snafus to early morning. So my thought, and again, a lot of our topics come from things that we see throughout the week, is truck brokerage and brokerage in general. Are they starting to outsource the labor? They're starting to get involved with AI, and we saw C.H. Robinson doing some layoffs and some cuts and saying, hey, a lot of what truck brokers, and you and I have personal experience on this stuff, is just banging phones and trying to get business and doing the heavy lift, which is not fun in the sales environment when you're starting your career out, right? So it was like when you and I were growing up, it was like, how many offices do you have as a truck brokerage company? And how fast can you enter markets? And the more people, the better. And it was almost like, a call pit, right? If you will, like a bullpen environment. Most of them were fun. I've been in plenty of C.H. Robinson offices where it's just a gallery of everybody that's under 30 that's starting their careers. They're having a good time with the papa shot in the corner and maybe beers with the group after 5 o'clock on a Friday. But that model's changing with AI, and I think they're starting. The trend with some companies is like, let's just outsource the back end operation, which has already happened, but now let's outsource some of these jobs that just require high volume, dialing for dollars, that kind of thing. So the funny thing is that they've outsourced the trucks. If I'm a brokerage firm, I don't own any assets, so I outsource the trucks. That's part of brokerage. That's the whole base model. Now I'm outsourcing the labor, right? They're not even my employees. I'm outsourcing the labor to do the blocking and tackling. So my question, Pete, is: are they going to outsource their entire existence? I mean,
They might.
what's the purpose, right?
Yeah.
I'm outsourcing my trucks. I'm outsourcing my employees. Am I just a bank facilitating payments and financial transactions? So that's not quite as crazy as living in a simulation, but it sure seems like we're going in that direction with AI. And let's just find the cheap labor in other markets. So I don't know. Have you heard about this, or what's your take on that?
Yeah. I think my first month at C.H. Robinson in 2009, they brought me to office they called Chicago Central. I don't know if it's still the same thing, but I wasn't ready for it, Doug. Like I didn't understand truck brokerage in 2009. I'm a customs house broker, right? I walk into this gigantic office, and it was like in the city of Chicago. It was a pretty cool location. But 500 plus people, 500 plus people just on the phone. I got a load, I got a truck, I got a load, I got a truck. And someone over here, like, I need a load. And there was a huge like control board up above everybody, like it was NASA, where their assets were and trucks were. And they're just like barking over the phones left and right. And I said, this reminds me of the boiler room. It's like but it was an incredibly profitable and highly efficient, believe it or not, way to manage the business. And it was, again, a business of scale. So the more people you had doing that stuff, the better off they'd be. As technology creeps into all of our different corners of our business, there's two things that happen. It becomes more efficient. It becomes more profitable. The price goes down. It becomes a commodity. And then the second thing that happens is our customers gain access to the technology. So as our customers gain access to the technology, it forces our business to evolve or to perish. And where I'm concerned here is I'm excited, right, that we have artificial intelligence and this brand new technology pushing everything. But I'm also a bit concerned, buddy, because as history has shown us, our customers, our clients themselves will adopt similar technology and begin to push us out of the middle. So, Doug, I think you're absolutely right. I think where I would be concerned if I was one of these large customers is at what point have I created such a good data-driven process that it can be co-opted by the large customers that I serve, and I become nothing but a place where money and data transfers, which in and of itself can be a profitable business, but I don't think it will be as large and as easy to hold on to as a beachfront as having, 5,000 people around the country barking into a phone.
Yeah. Well, I think you just described Uber.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's true. Aren't they a Colorado company, Uber Freight? Aren't they in Colorado?
No. I definitely know a handful of folks that live in Colorado that work for Uber Freight. But yeah. Anyway, it's interesting. Things move so gosh darn fast. We'll have to see. All right, Pete, wrap it up.
So,
this one goes along with conspiracy theories. Let her rip.
Well, no, it's not really a conspiracy theory. There's a long history of American economists and particularly the Fed and the White House talking about whether or not it would be a good idea to deeply devaluate the US dollar, to basically do what China has done for years, which is to use means to artificially lower the value of the US dollar against foreign currencies in an attempt to try to make our exports less expensive to foreign countries. I've said over and over again, imports help to drive consumption, but it's exports that create jobs. And when the U.S. is on a level playing field with a country like Japan or India, as an example, it's very difficult for us to sell at the same level because the dollar is worth just so much more money. So there's a positive side to that, right? And then there's a negative side, which would be that your dollar wouldn't buy as much of foreign goods. Would that slow down consumerism, which in turn would deeply slow down the American economy? We have a vice president nominee in J.D. Vance, who is a big believer in the concept of devaluing the U.S. dollar in order to reinvigorate industrial manufacturing in America, particularly of things like steel and other inputs into industry. And it's not a new concept, but I think it's gotten refreshed and people are taking a new look at it. When you have times where everything went to hell, like the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, and 100 years later, you look at it and say, well, could we do it differently now? Have we learned enough about the triggers to put in a massive tariff on everything coming into America? I don't know. Let's look at it. Let's model it. Let's consider the mathematics and the changes in history. Well, the same is being done now, not on tariffs, but on devaluing the US dollar. How would we do it? Would the Federal Reserve and the central bank be in a position to do it? And how would that impact jobs in America? And how would it impact the broader globe? It's a situation where it could be great for American jobs, bad for American consumption, and I think really bad for the broader global economy. I think it would trigger a brush fire in other nations that really do sort of depend on that lower value for the same product. China being a huge example here, as well as a lot of Africa and sub-Saharan Africa and South America. So if you're an American first kind of a guy, I can see the appeal to this, but I think I'm a little more worried about the global broader economy, and I'm not quite sure it's a great idea. But expect to start hearing this in political rhetoric leading up to November, the concept of devaluing the US dollar for the betterment of blue-collar working-class jobs in America.
To do something like this, the fragility, the balance, and the room for error is so small that if it works, yeah, I can kind of see it, but I'll tell you what, man, that makes me nervous. We're the world dominant power, and to come back and do something like this, and if it's not done right, there's no going back, right? And I don't know, man. It's almost like, okay, there's government subsidies and manipulation, right? How is that different than some of the economies we've seen across the world? I don't like it. It's too fragile. I don't know, man.
Let me give you an example from just today's show, right? So the ability for China to export these inexpensive EVs all over the place, a lot of it is driven by the function of their relatively low value currency and having a lot of people there to work, of course, but they're low value currency. So the argument would be that our adoption of technology, along with a low value currency, could be a hedge against that. It could very well be a hedge against that. So I hear what you're saying, man. In typical Doug Draper fashion, I don't like it. I don't want to hear any of this. This is ridiculous. Let's go get some butterscotch and play in the backyard, kids. Right? That's our typical reaction to everything. But I think it's a possibility. I think it's something that they'll consider, and I won't be surprised if it happens. But I think that there's a great line out there: when you play God, you learn quickly you're not. You're right. It's so intricate, Doug. There's so many strings to pull and so many things that are unknown. I think that trying to play with an organism as big as a global economy and our part as big as it is, I think that the results of it are so far reaching that it would be ridiculous to think that you could control something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good way to end it, right? Could be catastrophic. Yeah. It's too fragile. That's why we got the bug out bags. I don't have one, and you and Keenan have a pretty massive, elaborate suitcase.
Doug,
a bag, Pete. You're a bug out suitcase.
No, it's a bug out backpack. I have more than one, so that should be an indication. I also have a full EMT kit. Like, it's gigantic. I could do everything probably, but surgery. I mean, I'd probably even do some of that, frankly, with what this thing has. So. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst, Doug. Hope is not a strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like a gun. It's better to have one and not need it than need it and not have it.
Yeah, same can be said for a wife. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know how to end that. All right. Well, that ends our show today, Global Trade This Week, with my co-host, Pete Mento. Both of us are in California making the magic happen at 6 a.m. Pete, it's always a pleasure to hear you pontificate on stories. And we have a good yin and yang, not only with our discourse, but our topics, right? We really cover quite a bit. And if it's happening in global trade, you'll hear it here first. We take a forward lean on these topics, and we're not afraid to put out our comments and our projections. So again, thanks for Cap Logistics for making it happen. And thanks for our listeners for engaging with us this week. So Pete, that's a wrap, brother.
All right. Hey, enjoy your simulation today, Doug.
All right, you too.
Next week.
All right, take care.